Hi, everybody. This is another instructional video that I made to expand upon the one that I did last week about APA formatting, as well as to address some of the questions that you've had around cover page, the difference between a professional cover page and a student cover page, and also to address the issue of the abbreviated title for a running head versus a full title for a paper. So I keep in touch with many of my former students, and I reached out to some of them this week to ask them if I could use their samples, their work as samples, and they gave me permission to do so with the caveat that I redact the names. Actually, they didn't care if I share their names or not, but I did redact their names because that's best practice. And I went through and I kind of mishmashed a couple of samples so that I could have something to use to present to you. So this is just meant to be supplementary. And I am going to actually make this a little bit smaller so we can view it. Let's see, view. No, I don't want that. Let me just make that a little smaller. So there we go. And maybe that's a little small. Well, I'll switch it back. Anyway, so this is a sample cover page. This is a professional cover page because it has a running head. And I just double clicked up on the header so that you could see how you get in to manipulate that in Word. You probably already know that, but there are some shortcuts. And like anything, like almost any program, there's more than one way to do things. So I'm showing you, tricks that I've used that work for me. There are other ways. It isn't foregone that the way I use a Word document is the way that you need to use a Word document as far as the commands that you give the document. So, okay, so let's start with the title. The main title in here, I'll refer to the publication manual for, oh, it's not showing the green screen. If I can get it. Oh, well, this is the APA guide, and it's listed under the resources for your textbooks. This is the source that all the other resources you're using are based upon. So this is the primary source, the prime reference, publication manual of the American Psychological Association, version 7. And if you remember at the beginning of the course, when I did my long course overview and introduction, I strongly encourage you to get the the publication guide to use as a first direct method. It isn't wrong to use sources such as OWL and other online sources, but I will say that they are usually abbreviated. They are based upon the APA publication manual, and they are not always complete. So that was the reason for that. But because you're not required to buy the guide, and it is not wrong to use the online sources, I'm going to try to supplement this way. So in section 2, chapter 2, on page 30 of the APA guide, there are some notes about the paper elements. There is a different format for a student paper versus a professional paper. For your final capstone, let's use the professional one. For your assignments, yes, you can use the student paper version and not include a running head. That's fine. If you're going to use a running head, please use a running head correctly. And that was my point in making comments on that. So let's start then with the full title, which is described on page 31, 2.4 title. And the title should summarize the main idea of your paper. And you can see on this sample from former students, theirs was an action research project. It was action research. And you see here, impact of challenge tasks on motivation and autonomy of gifted readers. And in this case, this is not an APA citation that goes in the references section. So this follows the rule that we learned in school about capitalizing in a title. You capitalize the important words and not the minor word. You capitalize the major words and not the minor words such as of or on, usually prepositions or articles. So action, research, impact, challenge, tasks, motivation, autonomy, and gifted readers. These are all starting with a capital letter. And then of and on and, which are what we call minor words, those are not. So that is a nice title because it does summarize the main idea of their research or of their work. And then on the next line is where you would put the student name. And of course, I redacted it. And then per Concordia guidelines, this is the course. This was actually methods and analysis. This was for 605, which is the course we'll be together in a few weeks. They put the date. Please note that the sample I'm using is 2016. That was the course that they were in that I taught. My name, you can use my title or not. It doesn't matter to me. Concordia University, Irvine, and School of Education. Okay. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the running head. The running head is an abbreviated version of the long title. So long title, short title, and it hits on the most crucial ideas of the main idea, which was represented in the title. So really if somebody asked them what they were looking at or what they were studying, they would say motivation and autonomy of gifted readers. That was basically a short, succinct way of saying their topic. So that's what they chose for their running head. It is presented in capital letters, and it also should be no more than 50 characters long. And this is in the APA guide, summarized on title, running title. Sorry, I had a bookmark, but my it slipped out. So this is on page 37 of the APA version 7 guide. So section 2.8 talks about the running head. It's an abbreviated version of the paper title that appears at the top of every page to identify it for readers, especially readers of a print copy of the published article. Okay, so here it is up here, and it should be no more than 50 characters. A good way to do that is just to go under tools, go under word count. This tells us that how many characters there are. There are 36, which is less than 50, so it's perfect. Okay, so even though you're going into word count, you can also get a character count, either with spaces or without. In either case, it's less than 50. So this was a very nicely done running head, which is the abbreviated title. Okay, everyone. I included the next page of their paper because I wanted to show you that you do it on the title page for a professional copy, as well as throughout the text. So I only included the first page of their actual body of their paper. But for pages 3 through whatever they did, 50, the same running title would have appeared up in the top left-hand corner. I also wanted just to include, the heading, right? They did that. And here's just a little bit of text from their paper, really nicely written, has some nice parenthetical references. It uses APA format for a multiple faceted sentence where you would give A, B, C, D. Parenthetical references, author, comma, year, and so forth. Okay. And I also wanted to include the references just because it's nicely done. It isn't perfect, but it's pretty darn close. They did a really excellent job on this. So some of the things that you'll notice, they are listed in alphabetical order. Here is a great example of how, right, you might have a reference that falls out of the 5-year rule, right? So in this case, their topic was about motivated readers and gifted readers. And in their school, in their action research, they use this program, the accelerated reader program. And so because they were referring to the software, they can only refer to the date that the software was made or the version that they have. So that was at 2001. Is it kind of old for reference? Yes, but I mean, this is one of the exceptions. You can only use what you have, and if you have to refer to it, you have to cite it. Going now through their references, you'll notice that the majority of the references are within 5 years of the date of the paper. So this paper was done in 2016, and it was done in February. We don't really count 2021 for you, or in their case, 2016 as a year in the 5-year rule because it's only been around for 2 years. It's pretty new. So for the purposes of that class, kind of the 5-year rule was generally 2015 and 2010. So if it fell in between 2010 and 2015, it was generally within that 5-year rule, which is when you're referring to research, you don't want it to be much older than 5 years because we do a lot of research and you want to make sure that you're including all the most recent published information we know. It would be incomplete if you referred to something that was old and didn't include what has been discovered since then. So for the purposes of this bibliography list, really we're looking for references, primary sources. That's a journal article from a peer-reviewed journal with the dates inclusive of 2010 to 2015. If they had a 2016, that's great. As long as they had, the required 16 to 20 for the capstone. If there were a few more that were a little older, and if it really did contribute to the writing of the work, then it's not such a big deal if something is a little bit older, as long as it isn't the general rule. So let's take a look at their reference list again. And maybe now it would be good to make it just a little bit bigger for everybody's eyes. Let's zoom. Let's go to 125. Okay, let's do 150. That's better. Okay. So let's take a look. Here's 2014. Is that within the 2010 to 2015 range? Yes, it is. 2013, the same. Here's one, 2007. Yes, it's a little old, but look at the title, How Can Students Be Motivated? A Misplaced Question, because it was supplemental to all the other research articles they used. Not a big deal that they included it. Here's a 2010, here's a 2012, here's a 2016, here's a 14, a 13, a 12. Oh, 1916. This is the example of a seminal work in the area. This is John Dewey. He wrote in 1916. Good to reference it. It's perfectly okay that it's quite a bit older than 5 years. Here's a 2003. Yes, that one's a little old. 2009, a little old, but 2012. You can see that even in just the first page of their references, that the majority of their research is within the 5-year rule. And if you scroll through the whole example, you'll see, right, several pages worth, that the majority, they did meet the criteria of 16 to 20 references in the 5-year rule. They were very, very thorough in their research. So I think it's worth including this as a sample for you to use and to refer to. Now let's look a little bit, I'm sorry if I'm making you a little motion sick here. Let's look a little bit at their formatting. They did a lovely job at being sure with the article title to pay attention to that funky rule, which is only certain words are capitalized. Here they did the first word, how, capital H, and they also capitalized the A, which follows a colon. But all these other words, which under the regular rule, like we did for the title, these would be considered major words, not minor words, but they are not capitalized because this is an APA citation in the references section. And they also italicized the name of the journal and the volume. They put the number in parentheses. They used that important comma, and they did the span of the pages, and they followed with a period. And you can believe that I was on their case to get this right then too. Here's another example. They listed the authors and their initials. They listed the date, which only requires the year, not the month. They included the title of the journal, capitalizing the I for the first word. And that is the only word that is capitalized because you don't have any of that other punctuation like a colon or question mark going on. And same thing for italicized title of the journal, italicized volume, parenthetical number, and span of page numbers and period. So well done. Here is another one. They did refer to the Common Core state standards, and that was the author of the webpage. That was the year, and they cited it retrieved from this site. It's not necessary to put the date that it was retrieved in a bibliography list anymore. That has become obsolete. So let's just go through here. They did list the DOI number, which was helpful, not always necessary because you don't always access the article online, but if you do, you can include it. Let's take a look at a book. This is the example of a book. Now, this was a little bit more of a complicated reference. If you are citing a book, you need to include the city where it was published, and then a colon, and then the name of the publisher. In the case of a book, when you do the title, you follow the same capitalization rule, first word and first word following a colon or a semicolon or a question mark. But for a book, you do italicize the title, right? You use italics for the title of a book, whereas you do not for the title of a journal article. It's APA. I don't know. This is a little bit more of a complicated reference because the book was originally published in New York, but it was also republished as part of a compendium. So this is a little more complex than a regular book, but it's not a bad example. Some of you might be referencing a book that you found with a similar citation. So let's find a more simple version of a book. And here is another book. See, the title of the book is offered in italics. Only the first word is capitalized. Here I see this could either be Minneapolis, Minnesota. I happen to go to college there, so I know where it is. With the location that the book was published, plus the name of the publisher. It also would not be incorrect because Minneapolis is a major city to just do Minneapolis. I made that little mark there because I wanted to comment on that. They did the same thing here. In this case, small mistake. They should have spelled out the entire publisher instead of just doing Free Spirit Pub, period. Okay, so this is a good example of a extensive bibliography or references section that uses the correct formatting. There are some inconsistencies with the spacing of the the references. I have told you that I generally prefer single space going all the way through. Some of your professors will prefer double space in the references. It's okay, either one. When the publication guide does not specify that it must be one way or the other, then it's really the interpretation of the organization that is offering the course or that is publishing the work, like the journal. And in your case, it would be the preference of your instructor. This is where the instructor is always right piece comes in. And I know it's a little frustrating because we interpret our APA guidelines. That's because we're allowed to, because if it's not specifically said in the APA manual, then it's our preference. I would not take off points if you double space these all. It's not wrong. What is important is that it's legible and readable. So if you did this in your references, that would be fine. I'm not going to take off points, and some people definitely prefer it. So there you go. I think you'll notice in the I'm not logged into the course right now, but if you go to your formatting paper for Concordia, it's the format that you're supposed to use. It does have a note that the formatting of the School of Education for the university supersedes those of the APA guideline. So you do have a template for writing your papers in Concordia. In that same, actually, I'll just try to log on quickly. Let me stop sharing. In that same document, you'll also notice that it refers you to the APA guidelines. So here we go. Capstone resources. Here is your exploratory capstone project writing template. And here is your required structure for a School of Education paper. So you'll see right here, please note that the required structure for an SOE paper may vary from APA rules. In this case, the required structure writing template supersedes the APA. But if we go in and we open it up, here's where it explicitly says, please use Times New Roman in font size 12 point. And then also how to vary that within a table or a figure. Double space each line within the text and the reference list. Okay, fine. And for APA formatting, please consult the APA manual for the APA Association. Okay. For the template for the capstone, here you go. All right. So please make sure you're following the guidelines set forth in the APA guide, as well as the template. And if you have further questions, oops, I'm a little bit lost here. There we are. If you have further questions, email again is the best way to get a faster response. I'm working full-time at my regular full-time job. I am an adjunct instructor. So essentially between 7:30 and 3:30, I can check a text and respond to a text. I can check an email. I can respond to an email. I take a break every day. If I can get to you during my lunch break, I'm happy to. That's why email is the best way to contact me. I'm holding office hours once a week from 5:30 to 7 on Wednesdays. Doubling up on that this week because I missed them last week. So I'll do that on Monday and Wednesday. And then you're welcome to contact me by phone or by text if you would like to talk. It's just taking me a little longer to get back to you by phone because I'm behind because I was sick. So again, this is an overview of the APA formatting and for running ahead. I hope it's helpful. Let me know or don't. And hopefully I wanted to add that I did see quite a bit of improvement after our video lesson last week. So best of luck and let me know.